With Election Day upon us, people in the U.S. will soon see which direction the nation will move.
For many Gen Zers, this will be the first presidential election their voices will be heard.
It's not just about protecting our own rights, but making a change for others.
I vote, like I was saying, just because there's so much on the line this election.
As a black person, it's very important for you to vote, especially because it hasn't even been 100 years since we were allowed to vote.
At this pivotal point in the U.S. history, PAC News had the chance to talk to young voters about what is forming their opinions, what they want for their future, and how they are making their decisions. Hello and welcome to PAC News, Election Coverage 2024. I'm Carrie Olsen.
And I'm Margaret Powell. We start our program by looking at how Gen Z voters get their information about the candidates. Gen Z says goodbye to traditional media and hello to social media. According to a Forbes study, 46% of Gen Zers use platforms like TikTok to get their information. Reporter Chloe Witt spoke with college students to see how they get their information about the election.
In a world with unlimited news at your fingertips, college students like Brady Covington say they find other ways to get information about this election cycle.
I don't think most of my generation will admit it, but I get a lot of information from Instagram and TikTok.
Dillard professor and Fox 8 political analyst Robert Collins says he has seen how students don't watch news from his class.
I've been on TV for like a decade, for like over 10 years, but they don't watch TV, so how would they know I was on TV, you know?
But this way of getting information doesn't come without its faults. According to Collins, since social media is now a job for some people, it increases the spread of misinformation.
There's only one way to get millions of followers, and that's to post conspiracy theories and incendiary rhetoric.
Still, Covington believes there isn't always a need to fact check from every source on social media.
You know what? You hear people say, don't trust the internet. But half the stories on there are literally verified and true.
Xavier student Leah Clark says she always double checks information she sees online and believes everyone should do the same.
People really should be just taking the time to fact check. It's as simple as just doing a Google search or just doing a search and just going on there and just as soon as you hear something, be like, okay, let me just check this really quick.
From PAC News, I'm Chloe Witt.
And PAC News has an Instagram account with all the information you need to get ready to vote. Follow PAC News Vote 2024 for ballot information and ways to get to the polls for free.
According to the research group Circle, 41 million Gen Zers are eligible to vote in this coming election. 14% of them are black. Maria DiFelice spoke with some young black voters in the community to see why they go out and vote.
Xavier student Leah Clark says she has fond memories as a child seeing her loved ones vote.
My parents were they were very much serious about voting. I remember being a kid and we would actually sit in line with my mom or dad when they were going to vote at our local precinct. And I would actually get to go into the booth with my parents.
Clark says this coming election between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris is crucial for young black voters like her.
I know that I have personally faced, my parents have personally faced, my grandparents have personally faced how voting and not being able to vote has affected us.
Like Clark, Loyola student J.T. Smith says he remembers going to the polls with his family as a child.
But as I got older, especially when I got into like middle school and started understanding how politics worked, I was like, okay, yeah, I see why they took us, because they want us to get used to voting so that, we're never discouraged to not use our vote.
While Smith and Clark have a family history of going to the polls, many young black voters have to find a different motivation to go out and vote. I don't think my mom ever voted until the most recent election, Trump versus Biden, and my dad probably has never been registered ever.
Loyola student Brianna Crane says President Trump's election in 2016 is the main motivator for her to go to the polls.
I was just a little scared for my future, what was going to happen to me and people like me, and so I always told myself as soon as I was able to, I would get in those polls.
These 3 students are also making sure people go out to vote.
Is your mom going to be voting in this election? Oh, best believe. I'm making her. We're going to vote together.
I'm gonna say, please, for the love of God, go out and vote. Every vote is going to count, especially this time, because it looks like this one might be an even closer election than the last election.
There's the saying that a voteless people are a hopeless people, and I find that to be very true. I find that people sometimes, whenever they say that, oh, voting doesn't really matter, it comes from a place of, frankly, ignorance.
Maria DiFelice, PAC News.
Over 35 million Latinos will be eligible to vote on Election Day. Studies show that Latinos are the second fastest growing ethnic or racial group. This year, Latinos will represent more than 14% of eligible voters.
And many Puerto Ricans are angry after a speaker at a Trump rally made negative comments about the territory.
There's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Those words sparked Puerto Rican superstar Bad Bunny to endorse Kamala Harris.
But did you know Puerto Rican citizens don't have the right to vote in the presidential election? As a territory of the United States, Puerto Ricans are given U.S. citizenship, but they are denied voting rights in federal elections. If a Puerto Rican moves to any state, their voting rights change. Some Loyola students had to decide if they wanted to register and vote in the U.S. or in Puerto Rico. PAC News reporter Daniela Martinez has their stories.
It's very scary, it's very concerning.
Francisco Esteves grew up in a large family in Puerto Rico and now lives in Louisiana. By law, Puerto Ricans living in the States can register to vote for president, but that means they give up their right to vote in Puerto Rican elections. In the future, they can reverse their registration depending on where they reside. He struggled to decide where to vote, but ultimately realized the presidential election affected him and his family more than local elections in Puerto Rico.
No matter where I end up living, the presidential election will affect me more.
Other Puerto Ricans like Virginia Armstrong said her grandmother influenced her decision to keep her vote in Puerto Rico. Armstrong said that her grandmother's reaction to the candidates and her fears of Puerto Rico's future are what drove her to keep her vote at home.
Doctors will leave the island, education will worsen. If I potentially want to go back and work there and maybe raise my family there, if I don't vote for a change, that dream of mine, I fear won't come true.
Both Esteves and Armstrong are Loyola students who wish they didn't have to make this choice.
We were born in Puerto Rico and we're citizens. It's our president too. And I feel as citizens of the United States, we should have the right to vote even if we don't live in a U.S. state. So I definitely think it is unfair.
We don't have any rights. And if you want to be a country that is the representation of freedom of speech and the right to vote and a representation of democracy, then you need to be able to allow that to everyone.
This is Daniela Martinez reporting for PAC News.
According to the 2023 United States Census, there are more than 5 million Puerto Ricans living in the United States. That's more people than currently live on the island.
As Election Day approaches, students are trying to motivate other young people to vote. Tulane College Democrats do things like write postcards to swing state voters and make phone calls to make sure people's friends and families head to the polls for this election season.
Tonight we've been writing postcards to swing states to make sure we get as many voters out to the polls this November. They're not officially affiliated with any partisan organization or campaign, so they don't say which direction people should vote, just that they should vote, and that to remind their friends and families to vote, to make a plan to vote, to get everybody out to the polls.
During an election season, obviously we focus on the election, so we're doing lots of get out the vote efforts. Right now we're doing postcarding. Yesterday we made phone calls as part of the nationwide College Dems phone bank competition. We did not win, but we did make 2,300 calls in 2 hours, so that was really exciting.
Young voters are leaning more Democratic. That's according to the Pew Research Center. But the center found that a third of voters ages 18 to 24 lean towards the Republican Party, though only 14% identify with the party. We tried to speak with young Republican voters, but none of them wanted to go on the record. And this is a trend that reflected on other college campuses. Reporter Ulysses Jones spoke with one Loyola political science professor about what he has seen on campus.
I'm here with Dr. Roger White, who is the chair of the political science department here at Loyola. Polls show Trump has made big gains among young Black and Latino voters.
Right.
Have you seen that in your own experience on campus?
No, I haven't seen that on campus. I've seen it, I've read some things that would explain why that is. But I usually don't go around asking students on campus what their political perspective is, just because that's probably a violation of their right to privacy.
We try to get Republicans to talk to us, but no one wanted to go on the record. What do you hear from students?
I have had some of my conservative students tell me in confidence that they were conservatives. And I've had students tell me that other students who've graduated from here wanted to let me know that they're conservatives, but they never mentioned it to me when they were on campus because they were afraid that they would be shunned on campus because they're political conservatives, which in many ways is a reflection of the intense polarization we have in the United States today.
Why do you think young voters choose not to share their political opinions?
Well, one of the things that I've learned, especially since COVID, I've been here for more than a few years, and one of the things that I've learned, especially with the COVID experience, I have a better appreciation. There's in-class learning and there's out-of-class learning as well. So one of the things that students learn when they're here between, say, 18 and 22 is developing social intelligence and emotional intelligence. And a lot of times that doesn't happen in the classroom, which is a highly structured environment. It will tend to happen in extracurricular activities, friendships, and things like this. So a lot of times they're very sensitive about these kinds of things. And I was a union rep for 11 years. I've been called names that I cannot repeat here. But the fact is I learned just not to take those things personally. You know, the different people respond to me in a different way, and that varies according to the individual. But for people who are just getting out of high school and into college, being able to form and maintain good relationships with people is a starting point for them. And so they can be very sensitive to the idea of just sort of being left out on a limb and shunned. So.
Does this issue make it harder for you to teach students?
I'd like to see it loosen up a little bit, so without getting too nostalgic here, the Civic Engagement Society we started when the Iraq War began, way back in 2003. And we had a college Democrats and college Republicans. And we were able to bring them together and have them co-chair the Society for Civic Engagement. And we would have regular debates. And there was honest and important disagreements and sincere disagreements, but they actually got to know each other and became friends. And I think that was a very good experience. One of the former chair of the College Republicans, it's been like 20 years ago, we've stayed good friends. We have different political perspectives, but we've just stayed good friends. And that's something that I miss. The ability for people to have different points of view, really disagree with each other genuinely on something I think is very important, and still treat each other with dignity and respect, and sometimes even develop a friendship. I think that's important for democracy.
Dr. White.
Thank you for having me.
Louisiana voters set a new record for early voting this year. More than 849,000 went to the polls early, and more than 100,000 people voted on Tuesday, the last day to cast an early ballot. When it comes to absentee ballots, more than 110,000 votes have been cast. In total, nearly 1/3 of registered voters in Louisiana have already voted.
Do you need a ride to the polls on Election Day? If so, here are your options. RTA is providing free transportation on buses, streetcars, and ferries. For Loyola students, you can get a free ride to the polls by making a request through the Loyola Alert app. And if those options don't work out for you, Lyft is also offering half-off rides to the polls in this election day, as long as you preload the code VOTE24. Coming up, we talk to a self-care specialist about how to take care of your mental health during this stressful election time.
Also, what Loyola Design students are doing to grab your political attention on social media.
My name is Claire Anderson. I graduated from Loyola in 2021, and I currently work at a Beta Brewing company as their digital marketing specialist. The DiFelice Center was the best experience I had at Loyola, constantly learning, constantly growing, having new clients every year, past clients, forming those relationships. You're actually working with real people with real needs and an actual goal that they're working towards. You gain from the classes, but you utilize it, and the DiFelice Center has really benefited me in the long run. At my time at the DiFelice Center, it gave me real-world experience working with real clients, with real people, on real projects, and it is why I have the career today, and I'm incredibly thankful, and I'm looking forward to another 25 years of all its success and the success stories that come out of the people that work here, and I'm very thankful to be a part of it.
77% of adults in the U.S. are stressed about the future of the nation. That's according to a new study from the American Psychology Association. This is significantly higher than previous elections.
Chloe Witt spoke with Dr. Alicia Reed, a pharmacist and a self-care expert in New Orleans, about how you can keep calm during this stressful time.
I'm here with Dr. Alicia Reed, a pharmacist and self-care specialist in New Orleans. We found her through Instagram, where she posts how to take care of yourself during the election season. Hi, Dr. Reed.
Hi.
So we're gonna jump right in here. So according to the American Psychological Association, 69% of Americans are stressed about the 2024 election. What advice do you have to those who are feeling stressed?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised by the number. We're all feeling it, right? And the advice is just to make sure that you take care of yourself. I know self-care is a buzzword, and a lot of people see it hashtagged everywhere, but just really focusing on what self-care really means and just prioritizing yourself, and especially your mental health.
And a third of Americans say this election cycle has put a strain on themselves and their relationships with their family. How do you recommend people cope with this?
I mean, I think it's based on obviously differing views on a lot of different subjects and topics. And most people will disagree on certain things, but I think the key is to really, most people say agree to disagree, but also have conversations. Like think about finding out why that individual may not agree with the same practices or same thoughts that you do. Just really honoring those differences.
Do you think there is a way to like patch those relationships that have had like a more deep strain?
I think so. I mean, it's all about communication, right? Finding out what issues are important to each other and why they matter, you know, personal connection. So some relationships can't be salvaged though. You know, if it's based on morals and values, then you find that you're on a line. So those relationships may need to be severed. But in some cases, you want to have a conversation and find out why you have differing opinions of certain things.
Yeah. So most people have to go to school or work immediately after voting. Do you think there is a way for people to separate themselves from the voting process those days?
My advice, which I've given on social media, is to vote early so that you can really avoid that stress, you know, of standing in the lines, dealing with all of the emotions that are going on election day. However, if you did not early vote, because in Louisiana that time has passed, you know, you just want to make sure that you go in, vote, and then maybe take some time for yourself to decompress. I know certain jobs give you time off to vote, and then you have those breaks from work where you might want to take like a mental health break.
So no matter the election results, some people are going to be upset, I mean, naturally. So do you have any advice for those on how they can cope with the results?
I think, yeah, everyone's going to have their emotions. There are some people who are going to be overly excited and overjoyed, and there are going to be people who are going to be upset and feel somewhat defeated, right? I think it's all about processing your emotions, using things like journaling to really get those thoughts out, and you know, communicating, sharing your views or sharing how you actually feel with someone who's trusted, right? Not someone that you would get into an argument or disagreement with, because that can tend to heighten your anxiety or your angst towards a decision. So I would suggest really doing like some journaling and some meditation.
Awesome, and thank you for sitting with us. That's all I had for today. Thank you so much.
And Loyola University's Action Program is here to help with the election stress.
Next week, LUCAP will hold reflection sessions on the election results. LUCAP says this is a space for open conversation for students to reflect and understand each other. You can go to the Matches Lounge Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 12:30 to talk about the election, or the Multicultural Resource Center on Thursday at 12:30. And don't forget, there is a 24-hour on-call counselor for the Loyola community.
Coming up, Loyola's NAACP chapter president, Nyla Cunningham, tells us about what they're doing to help young Black voters get to the polls.
It's a simple but powerful message. We'll show you what Loyola Design students are doing to get young voters to the polls.
Here is where your story continues. Stretch the limits of your imagination. Create the world as you see it. One letter, one word, one pixel at a time. Move to the rhythm of your own story. Make something more. For him and her and them, for the world. Do what you love. Tell stories like never before in state-of-the-art recording, news, and editing studios. Created just for you. Learn skills that will never expire. Document moments, seconds, frames per second. Turn them into masterpieces. Creativity is more than a lifestyle. Make it a career. Tune into the sounds around you. Those notes, you were always meant to sing them. Creative boundaries, you were always meant to break them. Become the creative professional you are destined to be at the Anchor Institution for the Creative Economy. This is a stage, a world stage. New Orleans, culture rich. Loyola, hands-on access. Make the next move. Perform and work immediately. We do things differently. Use your creativity to impact society. Expand your mind. Be with and for others. Continue your story in the College of Music and Media at Loyola University, New Orleans.
Hello everyone, I'm Chance Duckworth.
I'm Joey Baptiste. And I'm Makai Manford. And I'm Frederick Brush.
And we all want to encourage you all to go out to the polls November 5th and vote. This is one of the most important elections of our time. So we're all going to give one reason why you should go out there and vote. One reason that you should go out there and vote is because your vote is your voice.
Another reason is because your vote matters. Another reason is your vote is powerful. And I just want to say, if you're old enough to vote, go out there and vote. And if you're not, try to influence your parents or someone who is to go vote.
All right, thank you guys for your time, and I hope to see you at the polls.
Louisiana has one of the lowest young voter turnout rates in the country. In October of 2023, only 36% of eligible voter population voted in Louisiana's primary election. That statistic inspired one Loyola professor to take action with his students' help. Reporter Alex Parton takes us inside the classroom.
To reach young voters, students at Loyola University New Orleans are creating animations to share on social media platforms like Instagram. They hope their animations will encourage young voters to participate in this year's presidential election. After researching their audience, they present their ideas to the class for critique. Design major Patricia Cabrera hopes the impact of her work will encourage others to remember their voice.
I just want people to remember, people died for this simple right of choosing who our leader is and who represents us as a country.
Catamaro is creating animations inspired by superheroes to encourage young voters to get to the polls.
My mom is super into politics. She talks about it all the time, and my dad just kind of lays back and does nothing. So I kind of wanted to do something to inspire them both.
Professor Scott Gerke decided to get his students involved after learning that Louisiana has one of the lowest voter turnout rates in the country. He hopes the work his data visualization course is doing will encourage college students to vote.
And the messages really are not telling you how to vote or who to vote for. It's really just making sure that you have a voice and you get to the polls and you do your civic duty and make sure that you're counted, your voice is counted.
The class is working up until Election Day. In the meantime, Gerke hopes young voters in Louisiana know that their voices should be heard, regardless of who they vote for this election.
Because we're designers and visual storytellers, I feel like we're in a really good position to get the word out in a really provocative way, hopefully to get people to think wow, I guess I really should do this.
At Loyola University New Orleans, I'm Alex Parton, reporting for PAC News.
To see these animations, visit PAC News social media.
The Loyola chapter of the NAACP is just one student group that is working to get students to vote.
PAC News reporter Sasha Grant sat down with the chapter president.
I'm here with Al Cunningham, a senior public relations major, and she's been working to educate students about voting. Thanks for being here, Nyla.
Of course.
For those who don't know what the NAACP stand for, what is their mission?
The NAACP is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. We are all about educating, litigating, and advocating for the Black community, whether it's within voting, within schools, within social circles, or just like all over the country. That's what our mission is, and that's what it's always been.
Great. And why do you feel that it's important for young adults, especially young Black adults, to vote in this election?
It's our future on the line. It may not seem important to us now, right in the moment, but the decisions that we make today are going to affect us in the years to come, whether it's wanting to buy homes, whether it's paying off debt, whether you want to have children. There are so many things that will affect us in the future that can come from voting, whether it's local, national, or state as well. You want to make sure that your future is secured. You want to have a say in your future, and you can do that by voting.
For the events that you've had on campus about voter registration, what has the turnout been on young Black men who come to those events and get educated about voting and what's going on in this election?
It's been a lot better than what I expected and what like my fellow leaders on the campus have expected, which honestly gives me hope that at least within this new generation, the Black men realize that they have power within their vote. And even if they don't know something, they know where to go. They know the resources that they have to reach out to get information. Now, the younger generation, they're coming up, they want to be a part of this change. They want to take action. They want to vote. They want to get educated, especially the Black men, because that's kind of been like a target for us, especially at this university. And to see them have that energy, to have that passion behind it is really inspiring.
And what does this election mean to you?
It means a lot. Personally, as a Black woman in America, there have been a lot of things stacked against me, against us as a Black woman in this country. And this election can either be extremely well for us and beneficial, or it can go down a path of kind of what students have been saying, for me personally, a fear of unknowing, uncertainty. Yeah, it means a lot to me because not only me, but my mother, my friends, people in my family who are my age, especially Black women, it will change the world we live in. It'll change the trajectory. It'll, put things in new places. So I keep repeating it. It means a lot, but that's kind of just what it means. Yeah, that's what I would say. Sorry.
And of course, thank you so much for being here with us today, Nyla.
We heard from many Gen Z voters, and now we want to hear their voices.
Here's just a few of the people we spoke to as we reported this election season.
Voting is one of those things where it's like, it comes with adulthood, it comes with, doing your research, having responsibility, accountability, of just making sure that you do your due diligence.
Voting, no matter who you're going to vote for, I encourage everyone to vote, even if you don't agree with me.
And vote, because that's the only way we're going to see real change, and it affects everything. It affects our lives, it affects our future.
That's all we have for you today. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Margaret Powell.
And I'm Carrie Adams Olsen. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at PAC News Vote 2024.